Before the 2017 football season, the Baylor Bears got Tennessee transfer Jalen Hurd, but had to sit out one season due to transfer rules. He possesses a major threat on offense, a running back at Tennessee, but now he's switched to wide receiver.
Switching positions on the gridiron is an arduous task, and for Jalen Hurd, he embraced the challenge and used his year of sitting out to the full capacity.
I had time after I had stopped playing for a bit to really focus on receiver and really get that mentality and kind of learn the perimeter a little bit.
Expect 110% from Hurd this season, as Matt Rule said that he is one of the team leaders. Look for Hurd to perform at an elite level. After all, he became a wide receiver to prolong his football career.
Well, my body was not really feeling that well at running back. I had a lot of injuries at Tennessee, and the switch has been great for me to rest my body, and then I'll be able to play a lot longer, I think.
So this summer we saw the running back market fully implode, but the writing's been on the wall for years at this point. So much so that 5 years ago, Tennessee's star running back decided to make a gamble that put his first round draft status and his entire football career on the line. It was a massive gamble, 5 years in the making, and now we finally know how them dice eventually landed. Back in 2018, I started telling this story, and it took 5 years for us to get the final chapter. So today, let's revisit the football gamble that was heard around the world. Way before we had suspensions for much less risky bets, this dude bet it all on one simple idea. An idea that pretty soon just might become the norm, as more kids might decide to make the same position change. But like a brilliant inventor who died right before the next big tech advancement, Jalen Hurd would never have the chance to benefit from his vision actually coming to pass. So despite being several years ahead of his time, he fades away, and someone else reaps all the rewards. And while that sucks, he can at the very least take some solace in the fact that despite the fact that things didn't go the way he'd hoped, if you take a quick look around the running back landscape, the logic in his decision has been proven correct. Cue the Wayne. Alright man, real quick here before we jump in, a quick word from today's sponsor, Aura. If you're tired of getting spam calls to the point where you don't even think about answering your phone no more, Aura can help with that. Data brokers make money selling your info to spammers who want to know things like your phone number and where you live. Aura identifies data brokers exposing your info and then sends opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them to, but they make it hard to do, so let Aura handle it for you. They also help protect your family from online threats, both seen and unseen, and it's easy to set up. You don't need multiple apps to get parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and actually more, and you get it all in one app for one affordable price. So let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can relax and live your life with a peace of mind. You can let people keep profiting off your private information, or you can go to aura.com/FlemLo. You can click the link in the description and scan the QR code on the screen to go to Aura and start your 2-week free trial today. And shout out to Aura once again for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, it's time to jump back in. Jalen Hurd was born in Henderson, Tennessee, 27 years ago in 1996. As a high school running back, he was not only a star, he was ranked well ahead of some NFL studs. In 2013, Bleacher Report ranked the top 10 high school running backs in the 2014 class. The first notable name on the list is Nick Chubb, who came in 8th place. Coming in at 7th, Dalvin Cook, with Sony Michel coming in at 4th. Now, number 1 on that list was Leonard Fournette, who's one of the greatest high school recruits that we've ever seen. Then right behind him at number 2 was the subject of this video, your boy Jalen Hurd. So as a high school runner, he was ranked either ahead or right on par with several current NFL backs. Now, I know how y'all do. Don't get distracted by the order of the rankings and all of that stuff. It's unimportant. Point is, he's considered in the same class, the same tier of guys that we've seen have success in the league. As a high school junior, the 6'5", 225-pound beast of a running back had a season most backs could only dream of. And I know you thinking these numbers ain't gonna stand up to that statement, but uncover your eyes, bro. I got a surprise for you. In 2012, this dude rushed for 3,357 yards on the ground. 3,000 yards sounds like a fake stat. I don't even really believe that. Like, where's the game log? Oh damn, here it is. Okay, cool, let's take a look. 238, 451, 245, 296, 299, 145, 216, 77, 6, okay, 238, 181, 175, and then 396 and 394. That's 3,300 yards on 300 rushes, all while averaging 10 yards per carry. That stat line is literally crazy. Nah, for real, bro, I'm serious. It's literally crazy. He was clearly a monster, but 317 carries in one season might have been a little overkill. This might be a controversial statement, like I'm honestly not sure, but that might have been the beginning of the end for Jalen Hurd. For comparison's sake, Bijan Robinson, top running back in this year's draft class. One of the highest rated prospects we've seen at the position for years at this point. Dude is really unbelievable. But when he was in high school, if you take his junior and senior seasons combined and add up the carries, still comes out to several less carries than Jalen Hurd had in that one damn season. During that year, Jalen Hurd broke the record for most yards in the history of Tennessee football. Dude literally carried his team to the championship, and in that game alone, he had 34 carries. In that championship game, this man rushed for damn near 400 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns. He led the team to victory and put that final stamp on an all-time great running back season, bro. But it turned out that records weren't the only thing broken, as Jalen's body even then had began to break down, to the point where he basically sat out his whole senior season after getting injured in the very first game of the year. But that didn't stop him from being ranked a 5-star recruit, and the Vols rejoiced when they landed the hometown kid. As a true freshman, he carried the ball 190 times for 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. Then as a sophomore, he had his best rushing season, 1,300 yards and 12 TDs on the ground. He was used primarily as a power back type, but always showed great vision and some good cutting ability. He could also catch the ball. Dude was pretty damn versatile, but all Tennessee wanted him to do was be a bruiser. But Jalen could already feel the physical style taking a toll on his body, and he questioned his decision to ever line up at running back in the first place. At 6'5", 225, he could have easily played receiver, and he would have absolutely still been a high-ranking recruit. A lot of people may look at him and say, well, he's too big and bulky. Why do you think he got big and bulky? If he never played running back and started out at receiver, he'd have built his body and his skill set to fit that position, because he had the natural talent to play either one. And no matter what he played in high school, they wasn't going to be able to stop him. But he made what in hindsight looks like a mistake by showing the football world what he can do in the backfield. Because every time he limped into the locker room after a tough game, he can feel every carry taking a collective toll. So after his second college season, he approached his coaches to ask if he can be used on more perimeter runs, because what he had been doing, just running up the gut, taking hits from D linemen, for his body, he knew that that was not sustainable, and maybe his coaches would have considered it, but he ran into one little problem.
Alvin Kamara's journey to Tennessee was not a direct one. There was a season at Alabama in which he never saw the field, followed by a year at Hutchinson Community College in Kansas, in which he became the top JUCO running back in the entire country. But today, he's in Knoxville and ready to make an impact in the Vols' backfield.
The Volunteers had a guy transfer in who was a more natural fit for the scat back role. So NFL superstar Alvin Kamara's transfer from Alabama kind of ruined Jalen's plan. Now, of course, it's not on Kamara. He's doing what's best for him. It's up to Jalen to get it how he lived. That's just life. But just looking at the actual cause and effect, once Kamara showed up, the writing was on the wall. Now he was part of a Thunder and Lightning backfield, and at 6'5", 230, we know who was the Thunder. And Jalen wasn't happy about the fact that the coaches hadn't really given this request any real consideration. And we've been trained to think about this from only one side, which is the greater good of the team or from the coach's perspective. But I think the only fair thing to do is to look at both sides. It ain't that hard to understand each person's point of view. The coaches are probably thinking, man, I got this great two-headed monster, but I'm going to get his scat back stuff to Kamara. He's Kamara. I'm going to throw him the ball. I'm going to let him be quick. I'm going to let him attack the outside and get all those fun plays. I'm going to put Jalen big ass in the back and let him run up the middle and get short yardage. And every now and again, I might give him an off tackle run or maybe a little screen, but I'm going to still use him like a power back. And from Jalen's side, he's thinking that this style of play, while he's pretty good at it, is going to shorten his career. He's already feeling these cumulative effects. So if he continues like this, how much longer can he play? So then you take it a step further. If he feels that way and the coaches are completely ignoring his concerns, from your perspective, that would mean that these coaches are now knowingly putting me in a position to shorten my career. So he enters his junior season with a new distrust of the coaching staff in general. This is human nature. And the stats suggest that if anything, they may have leaned even heavier into the bruiser role, as dude actually has the lowest yards per carry average of his whole career that season with only 3.7 a carry. Then in week 7, while facing the Georgia Bulldogs, Jalen is sidelined after taking a hard hit to the head. The coaches after the game said he had a lower body injury. Then the next day, the obvious thing came out. He was concussed. There was actually a whole lot of confusion behind this, as it definitely appears that the Vols didn't follow the protocols, because after the concussion, they didn't take Jalen's helmet, and despite the fact that he did not play another snap on the team's offense, he did get back on the field for his special teams play. This is probably why they lied and said it was a lower body injury, because if he was in concussion protocol, they were supposed to take his helmet. Now, I don't know if the coaches sent him back out there, or if they insinuated he was soft and then he forced his way on the field, or maybe he just wanted to try to prove something to his teammates or prove something to himself, and that's why he went back out there. Now, I can only speculate, which is why I almost didn't even include this detail in the video. But regardless to exactly how that whole thing went down, it would be the last time for many things in Jalen Hurd's life. It was the last time he'd suit up for the Tennessee Vols, and the last time he'd take the field as a running back. Given what we know about his injury history up to that point and his desire to change his running style, we can take an educated guess that this concussion was the final straw for Jalen Hurd playing running back. The coaches wouldn't help, so he was all on his own. So he did what he had to do and took it into his own hands. Now at this point, there's a lot of people who believe that if Jalen Hurd had simply finished his career with the Tennessee Volunteers and stayed at running back, that he would have been a first or second round pick in the upcoming draft. So when he said he was transferring, people were surprised. When he said he was changing positions, jaws hit the floor. He was ridiculed. Following football for all these years, I've noticed the thinking patterns within the sport are really rigid. Any thinking outside the box is always met with ridicule. This was no different. People said it was a ridiculous decision. They said it was an overreaction that Jalen had made on a whim. And maybe after that concussion, he just wasn't thinking straight. The truth was, the wear and tear that he'd been feeling in his body had pushed him in the direction of doing a little research. What that research showed him was that NFL running backs at that point was lasting about 3 years on average in the league. And Jalen had the experience to know exactly why that was, bro. Their bodies was breaking down. When asked about the change, here's the answer he gave. And listen close, because dude was spitting and he was way ahead of his time. Back in 2018, he said, quote, "Receivers are more valued than running backs in the NFL. I can play this game a lot longer and can be more valuable as a receiver. It's not just a position change. It's a career change." Today that feels like common knowledge, but here's a quote from a coach who was in the league at that time speaking on Jalen Hurd. "If he was my son, I would have kept him at running back. Wide receiver is a dime a dozen position. I understand the rationale that they play a little longer, but the receiver position, bro, it's a dime a dozen. It's very watered down. The league wants big running backs because there's not very many of those." So he went from a position of scarcity to a watered down position, which philosophically doesn't make sense to me. That statement is so wrong, like it's kinda hilarious. And it wasn't where we are today, but you could see it shifting. We all know that today, yeah, there's a ton of good receivers, but every single team needs a ton of good receivers. While the true dime a dozen / watered down position is obviously running back. What a crazy bad take. But what it shows is that Jalen Hurd had more vision for where the game was actually heading that even many coaches on the highest level did. Like I said, Jalen was ahead of his time at the way that he was thinking. Problem is, he was a few years too early. So he transfers to Baylor, sits out 2017 due to the transfer rules, but he uses that time to get completely healthy and go to work on crafting his receiver skills, dropping weight and making a position change official. Then he has a great season at receiver and makes 69 receptions for just under 1,000 yards. And in a move that I personally thought showed that he was a team guy and not just like this selfish diva type. He had no problem carrying the ball a few times when asked to do so for his new team. He took 48 carries for 200 yards and nearly matched his receiving touchdowns with rushing touchdowns. So his season overall was 1,100 all-purpose yards to go along with 7 total touchdowns. Good enough to win him Big 12 Newcomer of the Year and set him up to be drafted at his new position. His 40 time, bro, will not impress you. And we'll talk about it, but I want to do so in the proper perspective. So instead of just a 40, let's take a look at all his numbers in context. To do that, we'll use his RAS score, which is a metric that combines the different categories measured at the NFL Combine. This includes height, weight, wingspan, 40-yard dash, bench press, broad jump, all within context of your position, and it's a common stat used for NFL prospects. So a lineman score isn't hurt as much by his 40 time, and it'll be weighted based on what other linemen his size have run. Anything below a 5 RAS is bad, and anything above a 5 is considered to be good. Now, the average RAS score on an NFL roster is a 7.16, okay? That's the norm. Jalen Hurd's score was at 8.22, placing his overall athleticism compared to NFL players a pretty damn solid ways above average overall. But you can see the spots here where his score takes a hit. His size grade was elite, 6'4.5", 228. Yes, dude was a monster. His explosion grade was good, solid vert and a good broad jump. His speed, on the other hand, that was considered poor. And running a 4.64, while not a deal breaker at his size, is still definitely not the best. But if you compare his score to somebody like a Mike Evans, who's similar in both height and weight, you can see that Jalen Hurd is way more athletic. He clearly didn't turn to Mike Evans. I'm obviously not saying that. I'm just showing his potential. So Jalen Hurd was taken in the 3rd round by the 49ers, which probably should have been a dream scenario. Having a coach like Shanahan who knows how to use Deebo Samuel and other versatile players, you can't ask for a better landing spot. You're taking an ex-college running back, a beastly college running back, who changed positions and also had success at receiver. Now he's coming into an offense that can actually utilize his versatility. It was like a match made in heaven. In an alternate dimension, bro, this dude's a Pro Bowler, being used as a weapon in the 49ers offense. But unfortunately for Jalen, things never came to fruition. This is actually a good time to bring back that Mike Evans comparison. I ain't gonna lie, it took time for me to grow and fully appreciate Mike Evans and the consistency he brings year in and year out. Now, the guy I compared him to is also consistent. The problem is, he's consistently hurt. He spent his first 3 seasons in the league on IR. The first 3 seasons, bro. 3 straight years. So after being drafted in 2019, he was released a few years later, having never played a snap. He disappeared for a few years, then popped back up this summer when he signed with the Patriots, who was in desperate need for weapons. After being there for a total of like a week, he had a couple practice highlights, and then, you guessed it, once again Jalen Hurd gets injured, and after being hurt in high school, being hurt in college, then coming to the league and just rotting on IR for 3 years straight, he finally had enough. At 27 years old, man, this 5-star recruit who was a damn good college back and a damn good college receiver, a relatively high NFL draft pick, just announces his retirement with no snaps played. 0 snaps, bro. Never played a down. Dude basically bet the house, and he lost it all. But while the gamble very clearly did not work out, the plan didn't fail because he changed his position. It failed because he changed his position too late. I'm not blaming nobody for this. Like, I understand how it happened. I'm just looking at what variables could have possibly changed the outcome. And I think if he'd have played wide receiver from the jump, he'd have ended up having a way different career. At the same time, some people are just injury prone. They work hard, they eat right, there's just nothing they can do. They have the size and the skill and the temperament to play the game, but their joints, muscles, and bones just can't take the stress. That could have been the case, but even though it didn't work out, it's kind of hard to take a look at the running back market today and think that his logic was in any way flawed. In my opinion, I still think he made the right choice. But despite being way out ahead of his time, bro, 5 years early, and he was still too late. Take those early carries off his body and maybe this is a different story. But unfortunately for Jalen, what's done is done.